except for the last 2 years. I think we're all like left at home for some odd reason I won't get into, since there's this society that tends to not like the truth. So I did write a book, by the way, and it was designed to solve that global problem. Here it is, Blood Doesn't Lie, my 45 years experience in looking at people's blood under a high-powered microscope. I probably know as much about the immune system as any living doctor or educator. And that being said, I test even doctors who are certified and board certified in blood hematology, which means they spend their life as a professional studying blood, but they look at stains. They don't look at live blood. And they're really impressed when they go, wow, you're seeing things that we don't normally talk about. And so we have a booth 90 downstairs. You're welcome to go by, get your lab levels tested, and view your blood. I think it's the most powerful technology because we kind of got lazy and we started sending blood off to laboratories, and in minutes these tests come in and get a printout, and then now you're dependent on the doctor interpreting it. What does that mean? But when you see it and you like get a sense for how your blood came about to what that is, blood is the lifeline to all of health and well-being. But then also, very seldomly described, is the lymphatic system, the immune system. Do you realize the immune system is more extensive than the entire blood circulatory system, and it's dependent on a few things to be stimulated? What is that? Anyone know what is required to stimulate the immune system? Any idea? No, I'm holding this book because you're probably thinking lovemaking stimulates the immune system. Yes, it does. But it really stimulates about 30 centers of the brain when women have the big O, which, by the way, I think 75% of the divorces, by the way, do you know a statistic that 85% of men feel they're fantastic lovers? Do you know in the same relationship, 90% of women say the men are not pleasing them? So imagine why we have a disconnect. There's poor communication.
I agree with you.
And partly because men get their ego hurt. Tell a man, like I was in my first marriage, you're a lousy lover after I was with my wife for 5 years. Oh, gee, like that was tough. You know, we think, and I had read the books, The Joy of Sex, and it said all these like things to do, and it was completely wrong. I wasn't following exactly that book. But the point is, I had to read books written by women about how to please women, and then it came to me like, oh, wow. And I did not believe my theory for 26 years. I wrote this book covering a 26-year period. And then I finally validated the theory several times, and I said, oh, wow, I got to release this book. People and relationships need to improve. It's the core of society. What do they say? In a relationship, if a man's not in, or man and woman, whatever, is not in present with the kids, that the incidence of jail, drug, alcohol addiction, and so forth is skyrocketing. Do you know that the number one cause of death right now in people age 18 to 45, do you have any idea what it is? Raise your hand if you know. What, Sharon?
I think it's suicide.
What?
No, never mind.
No, say whatever it is.
I thought it was suicide because a lot of young people kill themselves.
Close. It's opiates, fentanyl, the painkiller, kills more people age 18 to 45 than COVID, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. We have a drug-addicted society. And I didn't really take it so close to heart because my father was an alcoholic, but he was functional. You know, in our society, we thought, okay, you know, he's a short distance truck driver for Vaughn's. He would go and drive all night, come home, go to sleep, so I wouldn't see him. He'd go off to the bar after sleeping, so I never saw him. Really, I think he talked to me a few times that I remember. And one was an argument about me getting a car, and he was all angry about it. But that being said, alcoholism is tough. And it's a tragic situation. And it came too close to home for me for a few friends that I have and a family member who almost took his life. And I looked at that and I said, God, I got to really understand that. And in my own life, fortunately, I haven't had substance addictions. I am a workaholic. I'm sorry, I am. When I get into those double shifts, it's the third shift that kind of breaks you. I now know to cut it off at 8 p.m. And I say, okay, it's time. I got to do, because one of the leading pillars of health for longevity is what? It relates to this word right here. Love. Love and connection, right? You look at societies called the blue zones. It wasn't just they usually follow a whole food, plant-based diet, which is the subject of our talk today, one of the topics. plant-based, oil-free, sugar-free, and I don't go for the vegan, like high-fat oils and all that. I'm talking really clean, whole foods diet that I followed for 45 years. But they found that love and connection was a major factor in longevity. And right up there, a 30% increase in longevity was what my father said you don't need until you die. What is that? Till you die, you can catch up on it after you die. Sleep, right? So it was drummed in my head. A, I don't need sleep. I can work into the night, right? I don't really have to have love and connection. Somehow I have 5 children by 4 different women, and yet I found a way to, I guess, go out at night a few times. And the love of my life, truly the love of my life, I fell in love, and we decided to have a child together. And she was told by the doctor, she had another child by another man, that she could not have a child. And we just somehow decided that night we were going to have a child, and we did. We worked backwards to conception. We figured that's when it was. And then 10 days after my son was born, he's now 29, so puts it back a little while back, she had hyperthyroidism that she suffered from prior to meeting me. And it was out of my realm of understanding how to help people with hormonal imbalances. And she died on Thanksgiving morning, 10 days after my son was born. So I was dealing with that challenge. I went through a year of kind of depression and feeling that how could I be in the health field and allow this to happen? When her doctor sent her home with extreme headaches and swelling, and he said, just take an aspirin. I thought, okay, that seems strange. And then on Thanksgiving morning, after a heavy Thanksgiving meal, she died. And so I lived with that. I decided to search out the greatest hormonal experts in the world because I realized there was this big gap in my understanding. I understood exercise. I didn't come around to accepting sleep till way later. So there's 7 pillars of health. And then I mastered hormones. And it took me literally 20 years to really, really deeply understand 38 different hormones that we all can have imbalances even as a child on up throughout the generations. And sometimes it's genetic pass through, it's sometimes what's called endocrine disruptors. So there's a number of things that happen. So when I was 22 years old, I was extremely overweight, obese, had high blood pressure, had been on blood pressure medications my entire high school years till I went to USC. I was accepted in a USC professional physical therapy school as a junior, which is uncommon. Out of 800 accepted applicants, I was one of only 2 accepted my junior. Usually you have to wait till your senior. And it was at the Turkey Bowl, again on Thanksgiving. I was playing football against the Pasadena Box Boys. Anyone near Pasadena area here? And they asked me to come out and play because I, in my high school days, was a vicious player, and UCLA and BYU had asked me to come play for them, and I didn't. I was too small to play against these guys. I went to USC, which I'm proud I did. I was hitting these guys, and on halftime, I walked to the side, not related to anything to do with football, and I fell to the ground. I had a stroke. I'm like, wow, something really bad, right? So the medications didn't protect me. I lost confidence in the medical profession with meds and chemo and drugs and radiation and all these interventions that, when you really look at it, are they building up the immune system? Are they supporting your health? And so I pursued finding a mentor. And that mentor turned out to be Nathan Pritikin out of Santa Monica, and he had written a book, Live Longer Now, and he was speaking in Pasadena. Pasadena keeps coming up. And I go to Pasadena and I hear him in front of an audience of 600 people, does the most amazing talk I'd ever heard about nutrition and its connection to strokes, heart attacks, high blood pressure, cancer, diabetes, goes through the whole thing, made the very clear distinctions to osteoporosis and bone loss associated to what? A high protein animal diet. And I looked at that and I thought, wow. So I started looking at the subject of what we're talking about, keto versus plant-based. And keto can be done in a different way. It can be a plant-based. If you want to be high-fat, that's your choice. A high-fat keto diet, nuts, seeds, avocados, olives, but don't use the oils. Why? Because under 45 years of looking under a microscope, I see the damage of oils clumping the blood together within 2 hours of consuming any oils, anything beyond a teaspoon. I'm talking about like a recipe like Indian food. They put a lot of oil in their plant-based foods. They have a high rate of, look it up, of high blood pressure, stroke, because their blood's too thick. Robert, how long have we known each other, sir? Robert Estrada?
Wow. Don't tell me about 30 years.
30 years, right? He still comes to my talks after 30 years. I guess I have something new to say.
The man that saved my life. I had a heart attack. They told me you got an hour to live, right? I said, I'm not going to get caught up in. So then I went to prison.
Come up here a second. Say a few words. It's an honor to have you here, Robert.
Well, thank
You
you.
probably saw my text. He said, you should come here and speak. Turn to the audience. Robert Estrada here. Give him a big hand.
I'm a retired engineer, right? Oh, retired engineer from aerospace. I was 50 working long hours and eating junk food and overweight. And then one day you end up with the pain, right? You end up in the pain and go to the hospital and they say, oh, you got a heart attack. And they come back and say, you only got an hour to live. And
That one's not working, so don't worry.
yeah, we need to operate on you. We need to do bypass surgery. What's that? It says, well, we're going to cut you up with a saw, and then we're going to open it up. Then they're going to run your blood through a machine for 8 hours to clean it, and then they're going to take a vein and jump one artery. And I said, then what? Are we going to sew you up? And then what? Well, then you're going to be on anti-rejection drugs the rest of your life. You're going to be in diapers. Because going to the bypass machine, it doesn't put a lot of oxygen. And I go, I think I'd rather die. He says, well, sign here and you're out of here. I said, okay, goodbye. And next day, I had heard about a Predican Institute that had put pilots back to work. So I called him up, and Nick was down in Torrance running the Predican Institute, doing all the live cell analysis, like it's being recorded. So I signed up, and it was intensive. We had classes and you write down everything you eat, and I was like so weak and all. They said, don't worry, in 6 months, look at your blood, it's full of junk and all that. You're going to feel better and you're going to revive. I go, oh my God. So I kept paying and going, and sure enough, eventually I felt better and better. And then over the years with Nick, every year I come and do my life cell analysis, blood cell analysis. He did it for Anthony Robbins and all these athletes and famous people, right? It's very brilliant. You got to see it. You see everything that you would never see in a blood test with a doctor. And then all the food that you eat, we would write it down and you would analyze it. Then you would make raw organic tacos. So anyway, you learn how to eat. But anyway, at the end, now it's been about 25, 30 years. And the last time we went and got tested, Nick had reversed his age like 50. And I copied everything he did, and I did even more intensive. And I reversed my age like 20 years, from 83 to 63.
Wow.
So, all it takes is a little discipline or fear. Like most men, you will not do it until they say, okay, you only got an hour to live. What are you going to do now? That's when we finally say, okay, we're ready to change, right? But anyway, it's been a pleasure with Nick. And he's so brilliant in everything from vaccines to, I don't know how he does it, nutrition, vaccines, cancer. He knows a little of everything, right? So anyway, it's always a pleasure to see him again.
I put it down for you. So the reality is that, we really need to recognize that there's some powerful technologies, and Robert came to me at a time of great need. I have a lady named Phyllis Ginsburg. She came to me at my classes when she was 19 years old. Her mother had died of coronary heart disease and then complications related to breast cancer. So she did not want to develop or die. Her mom was only in her 40s, 50s. And so she attended the classes. Everyone in the class was like my grandpa and grandma. Because she was 19. And she embraced what we were teaching. She followed it to a T. And food recall and your peers and seeing, we do food demonstrations. So we prepare the food so people get, and everyone to a person the first 3-4 weeks says, oh, those recipes are, without the sugar, the cherry pie without sugar. I mean, and so the taste buds changed. So by the 6th week, we'd do a potluck, and everyone would ask to bring their favorite dish they had learned to prepare. And they literally, almost to a person, come up to me and says, Nick, you know what? You got to try my recipe. You got to try my potluck. It's so good, so good. I got to tell you, I almost dropped out the first week. I couldn't handle it. It was minimal amount of oils and sugars and things. But now it's so, you got to try this. Add it to your cookbook. And I try it. And I go, it's just like the rest of our recipes, but their taste buds had adapted. And they got to the place where the food addictions, the hard, strong food addictions. And remember, the meat and dairy industry, huge industries. They even publish results saying that, cholesterol is a myth. Don't worry about it. You're okay. And who's it sponsored by? The meat and dairy industry and the egg board. They want you to believe that it's safe to consume massive amounts of animal product. I mean, I ate, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, had to have some animal protein. And so when I made that big change, that it was en route to helping me to lose 50 pounds and keep it off for 45 years. I have one of our techs that hadn't seen me for 3 years during the COVID thing, and everyone gained weight during COVID. I got in better shape since 2015. I'm in better shape now than I was 7 years ago. I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you, there's certain methods and techniques that we teach. So back to Phyllis, 45 years later, she writes a book, How to Not Be Sick and Tired, and it follows the principles of what I teach. So I've influenced literally tens of thousands of people. Later, I discovered as I evaluated and learned about hormones, I found out a connection to hormonal acne. I've helped 50,000 young kids. I co-wrote this book with the top board-certified dermatologist, Dr. Sonia Batterisi-Battisell, and she went through the entire book line by line. It took us 6 months. And she goes, oh, this is fantastic. She goes, you have the solution to acne. And I do. And so when you see the before after pictures and just helping people to clear up their skin, I mean, the skin is the window to, it's the first thing you notice on a person. If you have acne scars and pimples all over, it's embarrassing. It's tough, right? So for kids, what do they say? 80% of young people will develop acne. 80% in this country. And you'd think, oh, well, maybe, it's just common to teenagers and their hormones.
No, it's dairy.
It's dairy. It's dairy and animal product and oils. And there's a culture in the South Pacific, the Kitavan Islands, and these individuals eat a whole plant-based. They do eat coconut, so it's not a fat-free diet, but it's whole coconut and coconut water. They're not eating the separated oils, the MCT oils that they market and sell. They're eating the whole foods. Their skin's immaculate. Of course, when their friends and relatives or offspring migrate, or they themselves migrate to another country, and they start adopting the ways of that country, they develop skin problems consistent with hormonal acne of that generation. I even discovered an herbal combination that I put in a capsule, and we call these capsules Clear Skin Advance, and we have a brand that's launched here in time for this event. The original product, if you look it up on Amazon, it's called Ester Block, and it's our worldwide bestseller. And that product is just absolutely amazing, because a lot of the kids, they'll ask me, and I say, hey, I want you to read the book, study our courses, I'll give you some more insight. And help. Oh, I don't want to do all that. Just send me that product that I read about on Amazon that clears up your skin. I said, okay, it's a 30-second solution. You take the capsule, clears up your skin. But eventually I want to get their attention, because if they really make that shift in their whole foods eating, although this capsule's been shown to maybe reduce certain harmful hormones and metabolites that could increase the risk of certain cancers and things and improve the immune system. So I formulated over 30 products that people and doctors and educators and scientists and informed people use from one of the state-of-the-art laboratories, what's called GMP, Good Manufacturing Practices. So these are the highest of highest quality, yet competitive with like Amazon prices, which is insane, because everything's competitive and you get a lot of junk. Trust me, I study these products, I look at them, I see the formulas and go, what are they thinking? There's no way that's going to deliver. But they have great marketing, it gets out there. So when I first studied Max Gerson, and he was not promoting a keto high-fat diet. He was promoting a plant-based juicing, vegetables, eating fruit. The average person consumes 1,800 pounds of carrots, 1,300 pounds of apples, 145 heads of red cabbage, 400 heads of lettuce, 125 pounds of green peppers. And then there's some supplements that I believe are helpful. Later, he was vindicated when he wrote his book about the dietary oils and its association to breast cancer and a hormone called prolactin. You can measure this in women quickly and say, oh, wow, you're at high risk. You don't have to do this genetic test that Angelina Jolie and then had her breast removed because she was fearful she's going to have breast cancer, which is ridiculous because it's not a genetic thing. It is definitely an association of lifestyle choices. But Max Gerson was the first to publish imaging of cancers, brain cancer, pancreatic cancer, all these cancers, and reversing them. So this is one of the great ways, I believe, the pillars of health in nutrition to improve the immune system. So whatever you do, whether you go keto, and by the way, how many here are keto fans or paleo fans? Just a quick look. How many are plant-based people, oil-free? Okay, so you're fans of both, that's cool. You know what, there is, like I said, if you're gonna make a choice, just understand, take this analogy and it should be very clear to you, and if anyone can argue it, I'll give you a pat on the back, but you're wrong. Here's the point. We all agree, where does sugar come from? Sugar canes or beets, right? We all agree probably that beets are good for us and probably canes, chewing on canes and all the islands, it's good for you. But it's the separated white sugar, or even worse, the industrialized fructose corn syrup, which is man-made, those are not good for us. Anyone disagree with that statement, right? Now, try this one. You take a natural food, walnuts, olives, and you squeeze out the olive oil. That's processing. You've lost the fiber, you've lost the nutrients, you've lost most of the benefit, and you've concentrated to the pure calories. Unless you're starving and you're a homeless person, you shouldn't be consuming that. If you want to keep your skin preserved, rub the oil on your skin, don't consume it. I can show you that on the microscope 1,000 times in a row. Just a minute, Eileen. So we do a test, and I wrote the book, Blood Doesn't Lie. And this book goes through the 35 steps summarized into 7 pillars of health that build up the immune system so strong. And by the way, when you reach age 65, I'm north of 65, your immune system declines by, listen to this, not 6%, not 60%, any idea? 6,000%. So wonder people are susceptible to comorbidity, to COVID, which is AKA the flu. Sorry to say, but the death rate from the flu is higher than, quote, the outbreaks of COVID, which is partly the misidentification of this so-called rampant disease, okay? I won't get into that because I'll be censored. But the reality is the body responds, both whether building your body, because I don't know about you, but cancer concerns me. We all develop cancer at certain times during the life. But our body has the miraculous ability to fight and get rid of cancer, except when you're past 65, that immune system is down, unless you're doing the steps that I teach in the book. And these things are found and tested to be incredibly important. And one of my favorite products is adrenal DMG, dimethylglycine, which is a methyl donor. It's got garlic, echinacea. It's got the nutrients of the adrenal. A famous doctor in the 1950s discovered when there truly was a high incidence of death from an outbreak of a particular type of virus, aka like a SARS, one of those types of infectious conditions. And he was searching for a solution, and to a person, he found out it was usually adrenal fatigue. So he gave them over-the-counter, which called, well, it was actually a prescription item, still is, hydrocortisone, cortisol. When Trump ended up in the hospital with Walter Reed, they gave him dexamethasone, which is about 50 times stronger than cortisone. And cortisone got a bad name. It won the Nobel Prize because it was a solution for arthritis. So he was smart. William McKinley Jeffries, in his book, he retitled the book Safe Uses of Cortisol. And he said by taking a dose, and the body produces 40 milligrams of cortisol a day, and it's easy to test cortisol levels. When your levels are low, you're at risk for what? Addictions, drama queen, drama king, because you have to get your emotions to release cortisol, or you have to eat sugar or alcohol or drugs to get a release. So that's why addictions are so high, because most people walk around with adrenal burnout from using processed foods, from not getting enough sleep, from not being outdoors in the sunlight, and wearing, what do they call it? I can't call it what it is. Stress, and you're breathing your own toxins. I mean, you need something that restores the immune system. Out of the 30 products I formulated, if there was none other, I would say that's the go-to product. Besides this product, which rivals anything or beyond. It's our most often word of mouth in time for Valentine's Day. I think I only have 2 bottles left downstairs. We sold out yesterday. It's called Amore V. You take it an hour before intimacy. Women should only take about 1/3 of a capsule. It's very potent. And women do get a clitoral erection, men get a penile erection. And it just so you understand, nitric oxide, which I have a product called Grow Muscle Burn Fat and another one Stay Young, builds nitric oxide, and that releases the blood flow to all the capillaries. It expands the blood, but immediately there's an enzyme as we get older, and it gobbles up the nitric oxide. So it's as if you got this rise, if you will, in getting excited, and then it disappears very rapidly. This product, it was discovered that herbs reduce or clear that enzyme, and you get the full effect of being like when you were in your 20s. Having that effect, right? So when I looked at that, I said, I can figure this formula out, and it came to be, and people order it on a regular basis. So biological medicine, quality of mind. By the way, Bob Del Matique was in my coaching program. Here's a picture at age 80 years old. You've all heard of Jack LaLanne. He was best friends with Bob Del Matique. I went to his celebration of his life when he was 95. He passed on. The guy was phenomenal. So this lady, by the way, is 74. So you can reverse aging. My favorite of all time, by the way, after I broke the world record for curls and the curl and press, not for guys my age, but all-time world record, I said, will I break another world record in weightlifting? I said, no, I'm going to go after a more lofty goal. I'm going to break the world record for healthy aging. People can live a long time. Jean Calumet, Smithsonian Institute, refuted her 122 years of life because they said she got the birth certificate from her mother and passed it on. So she wasn't 122. At most, the pictures taken of her, she looked really old. At most, she was probably in her late 70s or 80s. Now, my hero, Bernardo, reached 114. He mostly plant-based vegan. He ate, I think, a little bit of salmon a couple times a week. He would wake up at sunrise without an alarm. He'd go to sleep at sunset. He'd boil his water because he was concerned about microbes in water. And he wrote a book, Living Beyond 100. So to me, that's healthy living, healthy aging. He's standing upright. His skin looks great. He did not consume much oil into his body. He rubbed the oil on his skin. He had a father who was a Brazilian doctor and trained him, a medical doctor, and taught him all these principles when he was a kid. So I'm training my kids, my grandkids. We have talks all the time. And eventually, you know how kids, they're all influenced by, their peers and their friends and, junk food and the whole thing. But eventually, when they have health issues, they start thinking, oh, maybe, these pimples here, I better do something that dad says. Or maybe, I need to lose 20 pounds. Maybe, I'm going to start exercising and jump on a trampoline and go through these routines. So to me, there's some certain role models. Jeffrey Life, age 83, when he was fat, potbelly, he started taking hormones, but he had a heart condition. And so he transferred over to a plant-based whole foods diet, and he practices about 4 of the 7 pillars of health that I teach. Bob Whelan, no legs, in a wheelchair. He entered the New York City Marathon. Instead of entering in the marathon and wheeling himself in the wheelchair. He got out of the wheelchair and one step at a time propelled his body through on his hands. Can you imagine how difficult 96 hours on the New York City Marathon? Oops. So, you've heard of Tony Robbins. He has a new book that's just come out called Life Force. Let's see, how do I go back? And I published a thesis study, my thesis on could you reduce cholesterol and triglycerides better, and I didn't use the words better than statins, but that was my premise. And in 9 days, we put people using this exact cookbook. It's a picture taking me. This book is 1992 circa. This puts it a little bit dated. And they followed the plant-based, oil-free, whole foods diet, and it gave miraculous results. Here's me and Tony Robbins. It helped people lose weight. I followed people 20 years later after going through this 9-day program with Tony Robbins, and the compliance was phenomenal. Why? Because he included one of my other pillars of health, which is the power of the mind. He realized that the subconscious mind, he studied with Richard Bandler, and we teach you now in our weekly group classes. We hold it Wednesday at 3 p.m. and then broadcast for the VIP coaches at 4 p.m. And you can tune in for the first session for free. And right now it's on special, like only $99. So this coaching program, you look up 7pillarscoaching.com and apply. And if you want to get a copy of my ebook, the new book, Disease Hacking, 12 Years in the Making, we're going to teach you about the subconscious mind, all the latest techniques, who's the leaders in this area, what about letting go of emotions. I've learned that the toughest thing for people is kind of the emotions of pain, that's the book, Disease Hacking, of pain, emotions, anger, hurt, and most of these stem from childhood. And we carry them on at a time when we're a child. We don't have the resources to understand why our parents yelled at us or disciplined us or hurt us or harmed us or whatever it was. So once we get to that core, and if you've ever not experienced timeline therapy, it's the most dramatic thing. I'm working with addicts right now, alcohol and drug addicts, and working through that because you've got to get to the core causes of their emotional hurt to let that go. Get their adrenal function up to function so they're not craving the alcohol or the drugs. And I use NAD drips, IV, it's about a 2-hour drip. There's a place in Malibu, you're up near Malibu, Wilshire, down in Orange County, down in San Diego. And it truly helps you to feel so good. I do about 2 treatments a week now. And I do multiple things in advanced therapeutics. Why? Because my world record will be confirmed when I make love to my lady at the age of 115 is all the record I have to break. Because physiologically, we have no proof that any human cells will replicate beyond that. But I am using 100 million cord blood stem cells about every 3 months. I'm doing peptides. I'm doing things that are so advanced that 90% of your doctors have no clue. But my book will explain exactly in my group coaches classes. It's just $99 a month. It's month to month. You have a question, Anastasia?
Yeah. Thank you, Nick.
Turn to Anastasia. Do you want to come up and ask the question? Because it'd be better. You're so beautiful. Come up, please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Hi.
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, I want to learn more about the oils. Because I've been vegetarian for about 10 years. My husband has been vegetarian for 20. And lately I've been more like leaning towards vegan diet without dairy because I notice how it affects my hormones and it's amazing. So my question basically about the oils. Yeah, the question. Thank you. So, I mean, I noticed that when I consume less oils, just like we went for raw vegan for about half a year with my husband, and we felt so amazing. At that time, it was like the most amazing, energetically speaking, time in our life. But at the same time, almost like for our honeymoon, my husband took me to Taiwan to this oil retreat.
Taiwan or Thailand?
Thailand.
Thailand.
So we went, it was like kind of like a liver and gallbladder, because his friend is the owner of that retreat, so we thought, why not? Let's go and check it out. So it was very fun, but we were drinking about half a liter of olive oil with the orange juice every single day, and it was supposed to clean. Yeah, nothing else. You don't eat for 2 weeks. He actually spent another week there, so people kind of release a lot of crazy things, and the teacher, the owner of that place, shows the pictures what people release, because I'm telling you, she's like a very rich woman who lives in Thailand, and she owns this huge retreat, and her family, one of the wealthiest families in Thailand. And every morning at 7 a.m. she sits and opens the buckets of people who come to her. Buckets meaning that they release everything that's coming out of them. And she looks at it with a little thing, and analyzes and tells what's wrong with your body. So it's crazy, and I don't know, many people heal a lot of things with oil, and at the same time, I don't know, I mean, I didn't release much. I don't know why it's good or bad, but she told me like, oh, probably because you're plant-based, you don't release much. But the question is, does oil have any properties to heal us? Because I personally feel like when I don't consume too much oil, I feel better. But at the same time, when you just take oil with some acid, it tends to release some things from your liver and gallbladder. So please tell me that. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you. So, Anastasia and group, this is something that, first off, I'm okay with essential oils in very small dosages. I'm okay, as I mentioned, with putting oil on the skin, as Bernardo Lapella would rub oil all over his face and body every day, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get it on my sheets, my bed, and this and that. Like, you know what? It's important to keep your skin healthy. But I have to explain to you again, oils, when they enter into the body, they have to be transported as triglycerides. So they first go through the lymphatic and they gum up your entire white blood cell lymphatic immune system. And then they pour into the general circulation. And oil, just do this simple experiment. Put a little salt or sugar on your hand and then turn it upside down and it falls, right? Put a little drop of oil, rub it in, and put some sugar or salt, and you turn your hand, it sticks. Now imagine this, a red blood cell, when you get a drop of blood, there's 8 million red blood cells at the head of a pin. So imagine that's like the little specks of salt. And when the oil pours literally into the bloodstream, I did an experiment, which I shared on a video, and I extremely clean, free of oils. Even when I go to restaurants, I'll look, give me frijoles de la olla, beans cooked in water. If you have refried, no, I don't want that. Get me rice, lettuce, tomatoes. I'll eat a little avocado. Raw food people rarely remain raw for a lifetime because it's very difficult, because raw food has so much fiber, it doesn't break down easily, and you're hungry constantly. So they always add oils to their diet because they're constantly hungry. So I figured out one of the keys to consistency was what's called sequencing, that I teach for those who are overweight, and sequencing the other direction to gain weight on a raw food diet. But there's a certain degree of foods like beans that need to be cooked so you can absorb them. And I cook them for 3 days in a crock pot to clear up the lectins if you're concerned about that. But a little bit of lectins are good for anti-cancer. But oils, I would make far worse than sugar. 100 times worse for you than sugar. It's the leading cause of diabetes, the leading cause of cognitive disorders. Why? Because oil itself desensitizes the insulin. Insulin is a hormone that pushes the sugar into the cells, and the reason the sugar ends up in the adrenal urine and the bloodstream is because it's not that they don't produce enough insulin. Diabetics type 2 produce all the insulin they need. They can't get the sugar into the cells because the fat in their blood is so problematic. It desensitizes the insulin. It won't work. It knocks it out for hours. And then that oil remains in your blood for anywhere. I measured my blood, and there's a video of me where I drank a glass of olive oil. I was eating my healthy baseline. I did my triglycerides, fasting, and then I ate what I always eat, you know, whether it was rice, fruits, vegetables, beans, peas, oil-free. My triglycerides were 45, which is, just so you know, really low. Anything under 100 is very low. My blood sugar was like 80, 90. I then drank the olive oil. Within 2 hours, my triglycerides doubled. Within 6 hours, they quadrupled. You could see it on the TV screen because I wanted people to visually see oil rolling in the blood and clumping all the blood cells together and suppressing the oxygen, which is one of the causes of cancer. Oxygen suppression, not enough oxygen, is a major cause besides cholesterol. Cholesterol because cancer, if you consume animal-based foods and plants have no cholesterol, you consume animal-based foods, that cholesterol feeds the cancer. Cancer can't produce its own cholesterol. So you really have to understand, when you understand the order of importance, number one most toxic food is protein, because animal protein is loaded with cholesterol and triglycerides and fat and synthetic hormones and their own hormones, because animals have estrous cycles. Do you know why you've heard of The Rock, Dwayne Johnson? Look him up. Look up gynecomastia, breast surgery. He takes so much steroids, it turns into estrogen, and he eats so much meat, they had to core out a big breast tissue. You imagine The Rock all manly and big boobs? Excuse me, but I think it belongs on women unless they're wanting to be transgender. I don't think that was his goal. You've heard of Brock Lesnar, UFC guy, big, manly, heavyweight, fighter. Same thing, gynecomastia. Almost every bodybuilder has this surgery. They never talk about it. It's not manly to talk about it. I teach them how to optimize their hormones to a manly level. When I went to the rainforest of Bali, and I've been all over the world, I'm walking through and I love monkeys. It's just a fascination for me because I think they're so cool and intelligent and kind of the origin of humans. If you look up the bonobos monkeys in Zaire, Africa, they stand upright. They make love to each other, looking in each other's eyes. They eat a plant-based whole foods diet with a little grubs, a few insects, but basically that is the origin of our humanity. And it wasn't until we went and learned to cook raw food, we got enough caloric density, the brain could develop, and we didn't have to think about eating food all day long. So raw food is great, but it's got to be supported properly and understood. Remember, I've been plant-based for 45 years. And I can outlift anyone in this room. I'll bet you $500 we go to the gym and we'll curl and press. I don't care if you're a world record strength bodybuilder, football player, anyone. I took TJ Slaughter, 49ers linebacker, pretty tough son of a bitch. Baltimore Orioles, he played for Philadelphia, monster of a man. And I put him through my 12-minute workout. 12 minutes, full body training to complete failure, every body part. You train the entire body. You get your cardio, you get your strength, you get your muscle density in 12 minutes. He looked at me, he smirked, and he goes, come on, man. I work out 2 hours a day. This is a joke. 12 minutes. I said, 12 minutes. Keep up with me, 12 minutes. Halfway in, he's looking at me, and he's just perspiring and breathing heavy. I said, breathe through your nose, don't breathe through your mouth. And he's just concentrating. God, I can't get through this, he told me later. 12 minutes. I put Joy Kong, MD, right locally, doctor. She said, I heard about this 12-minute workout. Can I do it? I said, it's not for the timid. I said, but I'll put you through it. We did. We filmed it. Min was there filming. I called her up 9 days later. 9 days in a row, I'll show you the text. She says, I am the most sore in my whole life. I've never been this sore. I can't get out of bed. I can't lift my arms. It's amazing. This is incredible. How'd you do that? It's way beyond HIIT training. People say, I don't have time to work out. I take 12 minutes to work out. Unless I'm doing my roll training where I'm training for a world record, I train nonstop for an hour. And I lift nonstop for an hour. I can run with the best runners. I don't run. I don't enjoy running unless I'm listening to some music or a podcast or my own podcast, Beyond Human. So I try and solve these problems for you. You have to understand oil would defeat my performance. I get foggy when I take oil. That's why you all drink coffee. You got to cut through that grease to get your body to wake up. When you understand letting go of oil and eating the whole plant-based, and if you go keto, go the whole plant-based. You need the nuts, seeds, avocados, all in reasonable quantities and you'll get all the nutrition and you can be more raw and do it. You can get raw naked too if you want. Go ahead.
Without oil, how do you cook? It's the food will be black, right?
That's why I developed a cookbook. I went around the world. I love cooking. I love doing recipes. I found the best recipes in the world, every cuisine. Indian, Asian, Japanese, sushi. I've been all over the world and I collected cookbooks and I said, wow, this recipe they already make is made properly. Some with the oil, I said, can I make this, with something I can replace? And most of the time I could. And those ended up in our cookbook and the potlucks and back to Robert's days and Phyllis Ginsburg, 45 years following this program. Not only can you must. It's one of the core principles. So what are the 7 principles of health? What are the key? The 7 pillars of health. I'm going to teach them tomorrow at my workshop because they told me I'm out of time. From 10 in the morning to 11:30. And I'm going to go through the pillars of health. And you're going to understand it so well that 45 years from now, you're going to come up to me and say, so thankful the way Robert did, that I met you, I learned from you, because you're going to learn. I have this fear of speaking in front of public if I don't know an answer. So I hone in hard on the science, and I learn it, and then I practically figure out how to do it and make it a reality. And that's what the 7 pillars of health. We have a living center, and arguably, if you go and you learn from me in the classes, you're going to do well. But if you spend 3 days at Corona at our living center, or you can stay 9 days, you can stay 30 days. I had a Harvard-trained medical doctor. When you say USC, Stanford, you're impressed. You say Harvard-trained, you're like, oh. And he called me up because most doctors know me, and he said, I need your help. He's a year older than me, 68. I said, what's going on? He said, I have diabetes. He said, I have diabetic neuropathy. When I walk, there's pain in my feet. I'm going blind. I have ED. I'm falling apart. But I've heard you can save me. He came in. The first 30 days, he went home, he came back, renewed again, another 30 days, came back again because he loved it so much, 30 days. We prepared the foods for him, show him how to prepare the foods. We don't just, like Joel Furman, they make the foods for you and you don't really get it. We put him through 4 of the 7 pillars. He's got 3 more to go. He's asking to come back in 3 days. We'll probably accept him back in to manifest his destiny. His diabetic neuropathy is gone. He's lost 20 pounds. His diabetes is cured. I didn't use those words. He's a medical doctor. He used the words cured. His eyesight came back. This is what we see. Tens of thousands of people, if they knew this now, this condition we call COVID, your immune system, your body, your health, your livelihood, your love life, your career, your relationships, all of that depends on your energy and your health to manifest. So I want to see my grandkids and their grandkids grow up and their grandkids grow up. Because the world is changing rapidly. But there's one thing we know, that you are in charge of a few things. What goes into your mouth, and I don't let oils and processed foods go in here. I'll let a kiss pass. You're in control of how the quality of you sleep, you detoxify, the consistency of exercise, the thoughts you have, the power of the mind, the subconscious mind. You're in control of the supplements you take, ideally personalized when you look at your blood under a microscope. It's only $40 to look at dry blood and $40 for dry blood. It's $80. If you ask me to test, because you're getting 45 years of my experience, it's $250. You will pay that if you like, but my techs are well trained. They work with me for years and years, and they'll do it correctly, and you can show me your results. I'll talk to you about it at the booth. I'm here till tonight and tomorrow. And it's really happy and exciting for me to see this audience, because I know you know people who can benefit from what we're talking about. I know you know that you yourself may not be prepared to admit that your doctor has not done you, or the system has not done you a service to know what you need to do to transform. And then there's what I call advanced therapeutics, stem cells, peptides, altitude conditioning. I do it all. And I do it within a budget. I probably spend less than, most Medicare patients. I'm proud to say I'm a Medicare holding card guy, and they won't pay for any of this advanced stuff. But I have the energy, and having spent, after the love of my life died, and I couldn't return a call, and I closed my business down. It was successful for a year, and I just couldn't get myself back in order, and I became homeless. I lived in my van that didn't run. It was a VW yellow van. I parked it next to 24 Hour Fitness until they made me move it. But I got a good workout for a year at 24 Hour Fitness. Had at least a membership for that, and I could work out in the shower, so I didn't stink when I went on, getting around. And I literally would look in the garbage for food. It was a tough time for me. It was a very tough time, and I see the people last night in LA, and I see them homeless, and it's tough. And they have a story, and I usually talk to them. And if I have food on me, I give it to them. If I have money, I give it to them. I was $250,000 upside down in losses. I had legal fees that I couldn't cover. I overcame that. Now my kids have big, beautiful, multi-million-dollar homes. They all have things you can't imagine. They learned Airbnb. They're very great entrepreneurs. There's a way. And you have to be sometimes strong. And maybe if you're not emotionally strong, you need some help. It's okay. We're here to help you. See you at booth 90. Thank you very much.
Thank you.